Ladies and gentlemen, what do you give Meko a round of applause?
No pressure, right? This better be good, right? After that intro, thank you, Craig. Well, good morning. It's so good to be with you guys. How's everybody doing? Good? The heat. Do we have people that like heat, the extreme heat in here? Really? Oh, dang, really? When it's 85, I start to really melt. Like, I'm just not a good person to be around because I'm so hot. I'm like, don't touch mommy, don't touch me. But thank God, I guess today is supposed to cool off to like 102, right? So considering what it's been like the last couple of days, that's like a big cool down. So, well, I am very excited to be here to speak. Craig, like he said, he didn't ask my husband to come and speak. He's like, Meko, will you? But you know what I love about that? I'm really honored, and I bless this house, and I honor your pastor and your wife just for listening to God and having me be here. And I appreciate that, and I bless that. I bless your obedience to God. It's awesome. All right, well, we're gonna look at this story about I'm scanning the room, about a prostitute. Good times. And so if you don't know what a prostitute is, you can talk to your parents later after this service and ask for a definition. Today, though, we are going to look at this story of in Joshua 2. Oh, I cut out. Is that me? No, it's you. It's you. It's you. It's you. You don't need to say that word. It's okay. Okay. So we're going to look at Joshua 2. And this is the story of Joshua 2 and then also chapter 6. When the Israelites walk around the wall, remember with this cute little Bible story, right? We've all heard it. Okay. The part that we're going to look at, though, is the story. We're going to focus on this woman named Rahab. And the story, and there's so much good stuff about them walking around the wall. That's really cool. But the meat of the story is with Rahab, and that's what we're going to kind of dive into. Do we have that picture of Rahab too? I found this picture. I found a lot of other pictures on the internet too about what the people thought Rahab looked like, and some of them were a little too risque for church. But I like this. You know what I like about it? I like it because she was Canaanite. She was a Canaanite woman. So she wasn't blonde hair and blue-eyed. And I like how this portrayal of her. She's dignified, but she looks fiery. And I think that's awesome, and that captures her personality. So let's go ahead, and we're going to just jump into the text. It's going to be a lot, but hang on, because we're going to go back, and we will dissect it together. All right, so let's all put our reading glasses on. And we don't have to read out loud together, but I'll read, and you guys can follow, all right? So Joshua 2, we're going to start with verse 1. Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. How would you like to say, where are you from? Well, I'm from Shittim. I mean, that's kind of awkward at dinner parties, right? Sorry. Okay. All right. Okay, so sorry. Refocus. All right. So, okay. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. Jericho, by the way, this is context real quick. The Israelites have just come out of their 40-year vacay in the desert, right? Okay. It was only supposed to take a few days, and it took 40 years. Moses has passed on, but there's been the promise from Abraham that they will come into the promised land. Remember, the land flowing with milk and honey. Okay. So this is the city of Jericho is like the gateway city, okay? And God has promised the Israelites, you take this city, Canaanite's yours. Or, the land of milk and honey is yours, okay? But Jericho is heavily fortified, and it's got a well inside. And the time of the story here, they have just finished harvest time. And with the well, the walls, and harvest time and the stores, they could wait out a siege for years, okay? So that's kind of the context. And Joshua is like, I'm going to take 2 spies, 2 of my most trusted people. I'm going to send them out, and I want them, and he's not sending them out to see if they're going to do this, but how they're going to do this. So he sends them out to Jericho, and he's having them, he's like, go and do recon and figure out where are the points of access, where can we get in? All right, so that's context. I will shut up now and we'll read the text. All right, so I just love this part because right off the bat, Joshua sends them out. Where they go? So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. What? Supposed to do recon, not that kind of recon, different recon. All right, so verse 2. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab, bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. Verse 4. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. Verse 5. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them. Verse 6. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the roof. Verse 7. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fjords of Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up on the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear. And what's interesting in the Hebrew, that's pretty much the correct rendition there. Their hearts were they were like melted wax. They had no backbone because they had heard what God had done to the Egyptians, how this God, this Jehovah, had parted the Red Sea. And so these Canaanites living in Jericho were kind of pooping their pants because they're like, this guy's coming for us. Uh-oh. Even though we are a fortified city and we have got a well and we're stocked up, we're scared. So it's just interesting that in the Hebrew this comes through this way. So, okay. Verse 10. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear. There again, that is that phrase. And everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. 12. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Sorry, frog in the throat this morning. 14. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land. Verse 15. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was part of the city wall. She said to them, go to the hill so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there 3 days. Interesting that that's 3 days, right? 3 is kind of a significant number in the Bible, right? Okay. Hide yourselves there 3 days until they return, then go on your way. Verse 17. Now the men had said to her, this oath you made us swear will not be binding on us unless, here's the condition, when we enter the land, you have tied this scarlet cord in your window through which you let us down. And unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family into your house. If any of them go outside your house into the street, their blood will be on their own heads. We will not be responsible. What does this remind you of? What just happened back in Egypt, remember? Exodus. When the angel, God's angel passed over, right? And that, remember, the Israelites were told, put blood over your door jambs. And it's kind of like this concept here. All right, sorry, I distracted myself again. Okay, 19. If any of them go outside your house into the street, their blood will be on their own heads. We will not be responsible. As for those who are in the house with you, their blood will be on our head if a hand is laid on them. But if you tell what we are doing, we will be released from the oath you made us swear. 21, verse 21. Agreed. Let it be as you say. And then the second part of 21. So she sent them away and they departed. And what does she do immediately after making this oath? She doesn't go clean the inn, or she doesn't go check on some of her customers. She immediately ties the scarlet cord in the window. Okay? So let's just do a quick recap. So there's this chick, Rahab, right? And what's kind of interesting is some of the commentaries I was reading, the word in Hebrew for innkeeper is spelled similarly to the word prostitute. And so a lot of commentators were like, oh, it's an oops in the original documents. It's actually, they meant to, she was an innkeeper. She wasn't a prostitute. But let me tell you, there is no discrepancy through, I forgot how many times, in Joshua 2 she's called a prostitute. In chapter 6 she's called a prostitute. And then in the New Testament she's referred to as prostitute over and over again too. And I'll tell you, it's not to shame her, but it's to bring glory to God. Okay? So I think this story here is an amazing story of God's grace. Okay? So obviously the entire Canaanite nation is familiar with what the God of the Israelites does, right? Because they're shaking in their boots and their hearts are melting. And what's fascinating is, as far as we know, like the king knows about this, right? I'm sure everybody from the lowest person in Jericho, obviously up to the king, everybody knows what Yahweh can do, what the God of the Israelites can do. But God's like, okay, Jericho, your time's up. And what we don't see in this is going back hundreds of years. God's trying to talk to the Canaanites and get them to repent. And as far as we know, Rahab is the only one that does that. So let's look at the text a little closer. Oh, real quick too, I think context is important. Can we get the picture of Jericho up real quick? Okay, so Jericho was a fortified city, like I said. They had an outer wall and an inner wall. The really pretty white buildings that's where the king lived, the nobility, all the upper crust people in society. The outer ring is where everybody else lived. So the bakers, the stable people, the prostitutes. Now, what's interesting, so the idea was if there was a siege, the people in the outer ring would get busted up first and destroyed first. And then maybe by that time, the aggressors would be tired and they'd be like, we're going to leave the people in the middle ring alone. But no. So what's interesting, though, is that Rahab, she actually has, she lives in the wall. Okay? So can we get that picture up real quick, too, of her? So this is what archaeologists think. This is not actually where she lived, but they think it was something like this. It was actually carved into the wall. Okay, so she did have an inn, but then she also provided a little something extra on the side. So she basically ran a tavern and like a little bed and breakfast, and then she also did other stuff too. Okay, so it was a twofer. She was an enterprising woman. And so when we read the text, maybe we're like, what's up with Joshua's two spies, man? They make a beeline for this place, right? What's up with that? They go right to the house of the prostitute. Well, part of it is because she ran a tavern. And so if you were a trader or a traveler, you would roll into town, you'd go to one of these places. And it may not have been for any extra fringe benefits. It might have just been like, I need mead or something, or beer. I need a beer right now. Or I need to eat some porridge. So you'd pop in here. And strangers were coming and going all the time in a place like this. So this is where a lot of time, and it's weird because sending out spies was common in this culture. I know it sounds weird to us, but this is how they did it. They'd send a few people out. It was guys. Sorry ladies. We hadn't tackled spy business back then. But they'd send guys out, and guys would do recon, and then they'd go back to their commander and report. Okay, so it was a common practice. So that's why they go to the house of Rahab, not for anything else. They're trying to gather intel and figure out how's the town laid out, what condition are the walls in, and then they're going to go back and report back to Joshua. Now, what's interesting when you first read this is it's kind of like this woman just sold out her countrymen. What's up with that? To these Israelites, these two spies that she just met. And maybe you're like, well, how does she know that they're Israelites? Commentators think it's because they dressed a certain way and they spoke a certain dialect. And they stood out from everybody else. This is predominantly a Canaanite city. Okay, so they did things differently. They dressed differently. So she strikes up this deal with them. And what I think is fascinating is in verse 8. So she doesn't even hesitate. Do you notice? She just kind of takes them under her wing. And but what I want us to get in our vernacular, what happens in verses 8 through 12, basically, she has a conversion experience, what we would call a conversion experience. And as Pastor Craig pointed out last time, I was like, dang it, I should have come up with that point. That was excellent. But when these two spies approach her, it's like Yahweh in the flesh going, who do you choose today? Who are you going to serve today? Who are you going to bow down to? And so she decides at that point, she's heard the stories just like everybody else of what this God has done. And so she makes a choice right then and there. She's like, I'm going to align myself with Yahweh. And I'm not sure that she took inventory of her life, maybe, and she wasn't like, I'm going to do this and this, and I'll have to start wearing a head covering. Like, I don't think she was doing all that. I think her gut, though, God called, and she responded, and she just stepped over the line of faith. Okay? So in verse 9, she says, look what she says, I know, does she say that your God, that your deity? She says, I know the Lord. There's a relationship with God that she has cultivated at this point. She's accepted him. She doesn't say he's your God, whatever deity you serve. She's like the Lord. She's acknowledging the sovereignty of God in her life at this point. Okay? All right. So so she makes this agreement. She talks to them and she's like, look, I know who you guys are. I know what you're up to. I'm going to help you. Can we get the Lego picture up? I'm just a big nerd, and I like stuff like this. So this is actually from the Lego Bible. There's a Lego version. And so this is her actually talking to the two spies. And she's like, look, I know what you're up to. Okay. I know what you did to the two kings, the two kingdoms. All right. Okay, so this is her striking the deal. All right. And I just think it's great because her outfit, it's just great. That's just great. All right. So anyways, okay, so then she strikes up this deal, right? And she says, can we go back to the text? Remember? So she helps them. She's like, here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to help you escape. And what's interesting, we know that this is a common thing because the king automatically knows. He's like, oh, yeah. He doesn't even ask. He doesn't send people out to say, hey, Rahab, have you seen these two people? She just knows. He knows. The king knows, right? And what's interesting, she strikes up this deal with them. And what I love about this, too, is just, when God's grace comes in, it radically transforms us. And God also, when he comes in, he's like, Rahab could have been like, I'm a prostitute. This is what I do. This is my trade. That's all I'll ever be. This is how I've grown up. This is who I am, right? But she doesn't, and I love, it's like God is calling to her and all of the Canaanites, and he's like, come to me. Come to me, jump to me. And when I was preparing for this, I just started praying, and I didn't get a Bible verse right off the bat or anything, but the vision I got and the image was like this kid that is just jumping off the edge into the deep end, but there's like the dad waiting for the kid to jump into the deep end of the pool. And I remember when our daughter, she was a very cautious kid, which you couldn't tell now because she's 11, but she's broken 5 bones at this point because she's crazy. But when we were teaching her to swim and we were trying to get her to jump into the deep end of the pool, she was so cautious, and she's like, nope, it's past the 3-foot mark. I'm not doing it. And we're like, you've got this, though. You can do it. We're like, jump. We'll catch you. We promise we won't let you sink. And I remember the day that she finally did it. I peed my pants. And I was like, this is awesome. But the look in her face was just complete and utter trust and exhilaration and joy. She lost herself in the moment. She lost herself in the leaping. And I think that's what's going on with Rahab here. She is leaping forward, and she's not looking back. Because you can't go forward if you're looking back. Try it. It doesn't work. I've tried it before. I've walked into stuff. I've tripped. I've broken stuff. It's not fun. You can't go forward looking back. And I think there's the physics too behind it and the mechanics of it, right? You can't leap forward if your top half of your body's in the back. But she does that. She does the full body leap at this point. What I like about this though too is, so God puts this call on her life, okay? And I think it's awesome because the Old Testament, it doesn't say like she reconsidered her life and had a new identity change and everything. It's implied in the text. When she hands the city over to the spies, basically, you know what she's doing? She's completely shutting the door on her old identity. She is burning bridges. Because when she does this, she is giving up her people, her tribe, her profession, her neighbors, everything. Everything. She burns it all. She gives it, she's just like, I'm not looking, I'm just jumping. And when God calls us, and I'm not just talking about when you step over the line of faith, but as believers, we go through our life, I think, and God's like, come up higher, I need you to jump higher. Trust me, I got you. And we're like, no, I like it where I can touch the ground and it's safe. Nope, I'm good. And God's like, trust me, I got you. And we're like, no, I want to stay grounded. And I love how she is crazy and she just does it. She just jumps. She goes for it. But in doing that, she severs all ties with her old identity. And it reminds me of this story in Matthew or Luke, one of those books of the Bible. But where the woman comes in and it's awkward then when it was told. I thought, when I was looking at it, I thought, oh, maybe it was a thing back then, but it wasn't a thing, it was awkward. Jesus is reclining, because that's how they ate, they reclined, right? At this dinner, this big fancy dinner in this house. And this woman comes in and she just starts weeping on Jesus' feet, right? She's kissing his feet. And then she starts washing his feet with her hair. And then she breaks open a vial that she has. It's an alabaster perfume thing. Okay, and they didn't have screw lids back then, so it is sealed. And there's precious perfume in there. That is her 401k. That is her retirement money. That is her identity. That's her ticket. That's her. And this woman breaks it at the feet of Jesus and pours a perfume on his feet. What that woman does at that point is she's completely severing all ties with her old identity and security. And that's what we see Rahab doing here. She's like, okay, I'm going for it. There's not even, the only thing that the Israelites promise her, the two spies, is that her family will not be devastated and destroyed. They don't say, we'll adopt you into our people group. You'll become one of us. They just promise that her family will be protected. And I think, how many times, what is God putting on your hearts where he's like, trust me, jump, I got you. But we're so scared. And we look at our lives and we're like, no, this is good. I'm good. I got this. This is good. At least, Rahab, maybe she was like, at least I got a home. It's in the wall. And I do unscrupulous things, but at least I know who I am and what I do. And people know about me. But God was like, no, come. I got something so much better. It'll blow your mind. And I know that, I'm 46 in a couple days. And so walking through this life, I've seen a lot of hardship. I know that being a Christian, just if you're born and you're sucking air, this life can become hard, right? And so I'm not saying this to you lightly. I'm not saying it's going to, when we leap, it's going to be all poops and giggles. But here's what I do guarantee. We serve a good God. And I'm just so excited. We're going to jump ahead to the end, because the ending of this story is phenomenal with Rahab. The spies didn't owe her anything else. But God, out of his goodness, she gets adopted into the Israelite nation. And she becomes part of the lineage of King David and Jesus. Amen. Can you imagine it just blows my mind. And it's offensive to us, I think, because sometimes I think we are like the prodigal son, the brother. It's like, I've done all the good stuff, I've followed the rules. And this guy gets a welcome home feast when he's got pig poop under his fingernails and he's wasted the family money on prostitutes and bad wine. What? How is that fair? But God's graciousness is extravagant and it's offensive sometimes to us. And what's interesting is even with studying with this, a lot of the commentators had a problem with her being a prostitute. Like, really had a problem. They're like, no. She was an innkeeper. Yeah, I had a little side business. But God's grace, man, comes in and it's not fair to our eyes. But the cool thing is when God says, jump, I have you, he gives us a new identity. And the cost is high, though, because it requires that we do something. What did she have to do on her end? There was a covenant that she made with these spies, right? Her end of the bargain was, I'll let you down out of the building, and I'll tell you where to hide, but you protect my people. And then they're like, okay, this is the other part, this is part two. You got to put that cord that we just climbed down, hang it out of your window. So that when we come, your house is covered. It was like the covering from the Passover, right? The death angel. And so she immediately does that. And I think that's another takeaway from this, is when God puts a call on our hearts, don't sit on it. Don't sit on it and don't think about it, because pray about it, yes. Ask for confirmation, yes. But often the more we think about it, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to make sense. It's not going to be safe. But that's the God we serve. Okay, I'm going to fast forward to this story, the end of the story, because, man, it's so awesome. All right. So let's look ahead. So I told you, okay, so just to recap, when God gives us a call, and now I'm talking about the initial call when we say, yes, Jesus, I love you. But as we're walking with God, he's like, come up higher, come up higher, come up higher, come up higher. He severs the ties with our old identity. Because he's like, I don't want you to be identified with who you used to be. I want you to be identified with who you are today in me, right? Okay, so there's that. And then we have our end. We have our end of the covenant that we have to keep up. Whatever God asks you to do, you have to do it. You can't sit on it and think about it, all right? All right. Number 3 is God is just freaking faithful. That's the bottom line. He is faithful, and he is a good God. And maybe for some of us, you're like, you don't know what I'm going through in my life. I don't. That's true. And I'm sure some of you are going through some horrible stuff. But what I do know is that we have a good God. And that's not cheesy, syrupy Sunday school stuff. That is something we can take to the bank. And here's what I want to show you guys. Let's look at James 2:21 through 26. And this is the Message version. I like just how it's phrased. Okay. Wasn't our ancestor Abraham, we all know Abraham, right? He started, hello, the Israelites, right? Kind of a big deal, okay? Wasn't our ancestor Abraham made right with God by works when he placed his son Isaac on the sacrificial altar? Isn't it obvious that faith and works are yoked partners? That faith expresses itself in works? that the works are works of faith, the full meaning of believe in the scripture sentence, Abraham believed God and was set right with God, includes his action. It's that mesh of believing and acting that got Abraham named God's friend. Is it not evident that a person is made right with God, not by a barren faith, but by faith fruitful in works? Isn't that what we just saw with Rahab? Not only does she confess it, but she backs it up with action, right? Okay. The same with Rahab. What? In the same paragraph, it goes Father Abraham and Rahab. What? Okay. The same with Rahab, the Jericho harlot. Wasn't her action in hiding God's spies and helping them escape that seamless unity of believing and doing what counted with God? The very moment you separate body and spirit, you end up with a corpse. Separate faith and works, and you get the same thing, a corpse. Okay, this is what I love about this. There's a ton of other people in the Bible that James could have written about. But he goes straight from Father Abraham to Rahab. Okay, and the point about the harlot, and there's other verses too that we'll take a peek at real quick, but it's not to shame her, and it's not to keep her old identity stuck there. It's to show God's grace and God's glory. Who else but our God could take a harlot who is doing God knows what and raise her up, redeem her and raise her up so that she is in the lineage not just of King David and King Solomon, but of Jesus. Only our God can do that. And I hope that encourages you. If you are teetering, if you're like, and God's calling you up higher, that you do that. Can I have the band come up, please? All right, one more thing that I want to leave you with, too. Hebrews 11:31. Do we have that? Did I give that to you? Yes. Okay. By faith, the prostitute, Rahab, once again, they're like, no, she wasn't an innkeeper. She was a prostitute. Because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. Okay, you know, Hebrews is like the great hall of fame of the faithful saints, right? She's in there. And I think it's super awesome. It's beyond awesome that we serve a God that takes the lowest of the low, the most despised of the despised, and says, I'm going to take you and redeem you so that you will become somebody that helps, that's in the lineage that brings salvation to humanity. You think Rahab in her wildest imagination could have been like, one day? No. But that's what God does for us. When we submit to him and we accept, he's like, hold on. Okay, this is the thing I want to leave you with. So in doing this study, they did archaeological digs of Jericho. And you know what they found? So the whole wall is just destroyed. Like the foundations are crumbled. There is one section, and it's burned too. It is destroyed and burned. There is one section that was untouched. And archaeologists, the secular archaeologists are like, what? This is crazy. This doesn't make sense. But that one section, and Christian archaeologists are like, well, that's the story of Rahab. And I just think God is good. God is good, and he's good all the time. And sometimes we just have to fight for it. And we have to steward it by remembering God is faithful, God is good. So I encourage you guys, if God's called you up higher and he's like, jump, I got you. You have to jump. You have to jump and trust God. All right, God bless you guys.